Um, we're a little ahead of time, but we've budgeted some buffer so that if questions run over and talks run over, we have some time. So we'll go ahead and get started with the first session. And I'll just briefly describe how this will work. So we have the first session of talks, and on your Slack channel, you should be at the channel called Day 126 March Talks Session 1. So that's where you want to be. And presumably that's where you're watching this video as well. Um, we have several talks, and these have been pre-recorded, all of them. So what I'll do is I'll just briefly introduce the speaker, just mention the speaker's name and what they're going to talk about in brief, and then we will play that pre-recorded video. But after the video has been played, you will have an opportunity to interact live with the speaker, where you can type in your comments and your questions in Slack. So this would be a text-based interaction. So you will type your questions, comments in Slack, and I will pick up a few of those questions and put them to the speaker, who will then, in speech, answer them. So you will be typing and they'll be responding by their voice. It's very important when you do type in your comments and questions for a particular speaker that you do so in the appropriate thread for that speaker. So if you hover over the speaker's name, where it says, for example, the first speaker is Taej Mundkur, and there's a place in the channel that says questions for Taej Mundkur here. If you hover over that with your mouse, or if you long press on your mobile device, there'll be an option to reply in thread, and you must ask your questions and or write your comments in that thread. Um, and so, so please do that. If you don't type them in the thread, but rather start a new message, that's a new message for the entire channel, then a volunteer will delete that message, and hopefully you'll remember to copy and paste your message in the appropriate thread before deleting. So don't take that risk, just use the thread. And if you don't know how and can't figure it out, just wait for somebody else to type a question, and then you'll see a little link will appear which says one reply or two replies and so on. I think that's all the how. Oh, I should also say that if your question has not been answered during the live session, never fear. The speakers know that they can come back to the to Slack, and they can type their response. So we can continue having discussions about any talk well into the future, well, at least for several days during the symposium and beyond. Where can you can continue, you can view the videos still, you'll be able to view the videos, and if you haven't seen the video live, you'll be able to see them later, and you can type in your questions and comments, and the speaker will be able to respond. After the live session, if you want to make sure the speaker gets a notification when you type a question, then please tag them using the @tag, and you'll see how to do that. I'm sure everybody's familiar with this. So tag them, and they'll receive a notification on their device that they have a message to respond to. All right. So I think we can get started then with session one. Remember, you should be in the channel Day 126 March Talks Session 1. So we have an amazing lineup of 5 talks this morning in the first session. Some overview talks, some talks about very specific projects, and also a talk about a new initiative. So we start with Dr. Taej Mundkur from Wetlands International, and he's going to be giving us a general overview about monitoring, the importance of monitoring, bird monitoring, and what it can lead to, especially in terms of conservation. So this will sort of, in a way, set the tone for the symposium going ahead. So can we have Taej Mundkur's talk, please?
Good day to all of you. It is a pleasure to speak to you on the subject of monitoring, and the title of my presentation is Joining the Dots, Linking Local Monitoring to National and Flyway Conservation. I greatly appreciate the opportunity given to me by Bird Count India, Nature Conservation Fund, CEDAR, and the LTEO as the main organizers of this timely symposium on monitoring birds in India. On this cover of this slide, you can see a report of the Asian waterbird census for the last 10 years, 2006 to 2015. And from the honeycomb on the right, you can see that this effort includes 1,400 volunteers who've covered more than 1,400 wetlands, of which 65 are being shown to support over 20,000 waterbirds. 1 in 4 of these waterbirds are declining in the Central Asian flyway, and 1 in 5 are globally threatened. Over 170 waterbird species have been covered in this monitoring effort. So let's dive into the presentation and learn a little more about the monitoring. Why do we want to monitor wetlands and waterbirds? Well, if we monitor waterbirds, we can better understand how they use the wetlands as feeding sites, roosting sites throughout the year for residents or migrants, staging sites, molting sites, as well as non-breeding sites for the long-distance migrants, and as nesting areas for the residents or local migrants. In addition, if we monitor waterbirds, we can be monitoring the wetlands for their productivity, using the monitoring to understand ongoing and potential threats to the wetlands and the waterbirds, as well as to use waterbirds to evaluate the effectiveness of some of the management actions being taken at these wetlands. If we go one level above, when we bring the information together either at the state level or at the national level, monitoring can help species conservation action plans that are being implemented to conserve these species to be better evaluated. Are they working or are they not? Are numbers going up or stable or going down? Additionally, it can be used to identify internationally and nationally important wetlands for waterbirds. And this could help prioritization that could be used for the government to designate sites under various international agreements, as well as under national and local protected area legislation. It can be used to help update important bird area directories. It helps to meet obligations in terms of monitoring under the various conventions and obligations it has for flyway site network monitoring, etc. Finally, it could be useful in monitoring implementation of wetland policies and plans that the governments may develop at the national or state level. If we take it one level above to the flyway level, monitoring across countries, say from the Arctic down to India, provides us a list of internationally important sites for waterbirds that these birds depend on during their annual migration. So conservation action, if focused at these network of internationally important sites, can provide a strong basis for conservation. Monitoring these at different times of the year helps to understand what's happening at those sites and to take preventive action if something is going wrong. The dots here include sites that were designated by governments to the Western Central Asian Flyway Site Network that was launched way back in 2007 under the CMS framework. And this provides a very good basis going forward for the governments to work together to designate additional sites for other species. Even though we may have lost the Siberian crane in this flyway, these wetlands are important for the wide range of other species. Monitoring, if looked at a global level, helps to meet, besides the Ramsar and CMS convention that I've talked about, as well as priorities of the Convention on Biological Diversity and the Council of Arctic Flora and Fauna, which links the various flyways of the world, where many of the waterbirds that come to India and the Central Asian flyway originate up in the Arctic. What we've noticed is that monitoring of waterbirds can also act as a very good early warning of potential or ongoing changes to the quality of the wetland habitats, as well as they can provide us information of the impacts of climate change. For example, long-term monitoring in Western Europe and analysis of that information for 2 species shown here, tufted duck and goldeneye, show that over time, the numbers of birds are going down further south and increasing further north. So it shows a northeastward shift in the populations of these birds. And so actions need to be taken to deal with these changes as well. Monitoring is helping us develop good information on the population status and trends of waterbirds, and this is summarized in the Waterbird Population Estimates series that is developed by Wetlands International. The 1% thresholds developed from the size estimates is used by governments to designate Ramsar sites, flyway network sites, and other sites of international importance. Monitoring is also helping governments to meet global targets, such as for the Aichi targets and the Sustainable Development Goals. So if we join the dots, you can really see that monitoring from the wetland level through the state, national, flyway, global level is interconnected in many different ways. So action at every level needs to be done in cohesion with plans for the other levels, and together we can get synergies that help to ensure conservation of waterbirds and wetland habitats. I mentioned the International Waterbird Census as one example of a monitoring program that's been running since the 1960s around Europe, and then started in India and in Asia in the 1980s. It happens once a year, and in India, it is coordinated by the Bombay Natural History Society and Wetlands International in partnership with Bird Count India. More information is on the website. I'd like to end by just talking about the monitoring priorities for India and Central Asian flyway. From the range of users of this monitoring information, you can see that it is important having robust monitoring programs in the country, and that you need to be strengthening local networks of volunteers, NGOs, government, and specialists to be taking part in these census programs and monitoring actions using standardized methodologies. We need to extend and ensure that poorly covered sites are covered in the future, and that these sites should include breeding sites, staging sites, as well as the non-breeding sites. It's no use collecting this information if it's not being used, and so feeding that into policy development and conservation action documents is very important, as well as feeding it into the waterbird status and trends reviews that I talked about. Finally, it's important to raise awareness and support for wetlands and waterbirds, and monitoring information can provide a very good way to do so. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you so much, Tej. I think if you can unmute yourself. Yeah, great. Thank you. I am juggling multiple windows, so let me just look at the Slack channel over here. And okay, so thanks a lot, Tej, for that overview. Really important sort of summarization of what monitoring can do at the larger level in terms of policy and action on the ground. So we have a few questions for you, and I'm sure a few more will come in. First question from Vrushal is, are there updated results of the AWC for 2015 to 2020? Or if not, what's the latest information?
Sorry, could you please repeat the question? The sound faltered for a moment.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Do we have results, the latest results from 2015 to 2020 from the AWC, or what's the latest year for which we have information?
Yes. Besides the 10-year report, thank you for the question. Besides the 10-year report that I referred to, the results of the AWC as well as the rest of the global census is updated as a summary on the IWC website. So every year there is a running 5-year report that is summarized on that. And I invite you all to have a look at that website and get back if you have any questions. It does take time for information to get to us because We work in a pyramid, let's say, from the counters to the coordinators, coordinators to the national coordinators to the regional and global coordinators. And at each level, that information is being summarized. So what you do see at the on the website is the global summary at the national level, not the local details.
Great, thanks. Tej, another question. Rishikesh asks, as a bird photographer, how can I contribute to bird monitoring?
Well, as bird photography has improved and the quality of images have improved, bird photography can help in estimating numbers and species diversity, particularly in areas where there may not be bird watchers or people participating in the census. This could provide a mechanism for collecting information that would otherwise be missed. It can also help to confirm the identification of species as well as numbers of birds that are present at wetlands. So in those ways, at least bird photographs and bird photographers can play a very good role in this. Additionally, I think as we've seen, a lot more information is being generated on movement and migration based on color marking of birds. Bird photographs with either wing tags or leg flags with numbers can be a very good way of recording movements of migratory birds, and that provides a good information base as well.
Okay. Tej, there are a bunch of other really interesting questions on the thread, but I think we do have to move on. There's one question from Swapnil about what action has been taken based on this on monitoring. But I think we do have to move on to the next talk, I'm afraid. But will you be able to stick around and answer some of the questions by text on Slack? That would be really helpful.
Thank you very much. I will.
Thanks so much, Tej.